Story 1. We all think we're right and then we change our mind and then think we're right again. Reminds me to stay humble. Stolen from the Cinema Therapy channel on YouTube for those asking. Story 2. In high school, I was taking a driver's education class. My instructor once said, "You don't always have to hit the brakes. Sometimes just let off the gas." I have used this in so many instances in life. Story 3. I try to live by this quote. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Dr. Seuss. Pretty simple idea, but as someone who struggles to express who I really am and what I think and feel, it's harder to do. I'm always worried about others judging me and what others think of me. Story 4. If you do not have time to do something right, then you will not have time to do it twice. Take your time to do things right, because if you do it poorly, it will come back around and be your problem again. This mainly applies to work, but I think it has also allowed me to slow down and relax in other parts of my life too. Story 5. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Rabbi Tarfon. Story 6. If you are going to achieve excellence in big things, you develop the habit in little matters. Excellence is not an exception. It is a prevailing attitude. Story 7. Courage is not the absence of fear, rather the knowledge that some things are more important than fear. The brave may not live forever, but the cautious never live at all. Story 8. If the world smells of shit, best to check your shoe. In other words, be humble, self-aware, and thoughtful about how your perception may differ from the world around you. Story 9. I was chasing a career in information technology. Then I heard this quote by Jim Carrey. You can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love. I'm a commercial pilot now and love my job and the direction it's taken my life, both metaphorically and physically. A little background, I was in the Army, and my job was in information technology. It would have been a fairly easy transition to go from active duty to a paid military contractor and make over $100,000, but I hated it. We worked inside dark buildings, 3 stories underground, and we were basically mole rats with a security clearance. Then I saw Jim Carrey's commencement speech, which contained the quote. Here is the inspiring snippet. After that, I started searching for flight schools where I could also get a bachelor's degree. For those asking about flying, I went to a Part 141 school to learn how to fly at a college. I got a bachelor's degree in aeronautical science. To get my private, instrument, commercial, and multi-engine certificates, it cost about $80,000, but that number is going up. Add another $15,000 to get my flight instructor licenses. This is a good way to build time and confidence. At the time, the GI Bill only covered my tuition, so I had to pay for all my flight costs, $80,000. So with tuition, it was about $120,000. For veterans now, you can get 100% of your tuition and flight costs paid for. You can become a commercial pilot and not pay a cent. I was 27 when I started my training, and I graduated when I was 30 with all my ratings. I'm a little bit older than my fellow classmates, but I feel like I did better as I wasn't partying and had better focus as an adult. I did feel like I had a more difficult time picking things up, though. Flying is something I've always wanted to do, but it always seemed out of reach. Thanks to Mr. Carey and his speech at Maharishi University, I'm now doing what I love. Seriously, I love to go to work every morning, hop in an airplane, and appreciate that I'm not in a bunker in Kuwait, smacking on a keyboard and hating my life. If any of you have questions, please direct message me or something. I'd love to help people get into aviation. Story 10. Hope is not a strategy. Whether you want to get in shape, get a new job, find a healthy romantic relationship, or just make a friend, harder than you would think after your early 20s. You had better sit down and ask yourself what you want to be, what you are currently, and what you need to learn, and start doing to close the gap. Then start taking some small action each day to slowly close that gap. 2 bonus quotes along the same lines. Don't prepare until you might succeed. Prepare until you would be surprised if you didn't. It might take you a couple of years to achieve your goal, But a couple of years from now, you are going to wish you started a couple of years ago. These three are all along the same lines, but have helped me more times than I can count. Story 11. I have two. First, there isn't a correct or incorrect personality. This was taught to me in university in psychology. It changed the way I see people. Second, and I'm speaking from memory, if a good opportunity is offered to you and you don't know how to do it, accept it and figure it out afterward. That was by Richard Branson. My wife and I managed to build a business or three with that mindset. Story 12. Ever loved someone so much, you would do anything for them? Yeah, well, make that someone yourself and do whatever you want. Harvey Specter. Sometimes the wrong train takes you to the right station. Crash landing on you. Story 13. Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. Mark Twain. I let go of a ton of stress in life by not trying to reason with people that cannot be reasoned with. Story 14. A man has two lives, and the second one begins when he realizes he only has one. This quote completely changed my perspective on how I looked at my existing career and what I really wanted to do. After that, the floodgates opened for me. Story 15. Recognize that how people act towards you is not a statement about your value as a person, but a reflection of the state of their relationship with themselves. This has always helped me empathize with and understand people and not take things personally. Story 16. I read The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini in high school, and a quote told by the protagonist's father has stuck with me ever since. There is only one sin, only one, and that is theft. Every other sin is a variation of theft. When you kill a man, you steal a life. You steal his wife's right to a husband, rob his children of a father. When you tell a lie, you steal someone's right to the truth. When you cheat, you steal the right to fairness. There is no act more wretched than stealing. It's a long one, but no less an important one. Story 17. When I was little, I was visiting my grandma with my two brothers. We went grocery shopping, got 3 bags of groceries, and Grandma made us boys carry them all. My big brother asked her, "But what are you going to carry?" She said, "I carry the expenses." Since then, my philosophy has been, if someone pays, I carry. Story 18. It is the mark of an educated mind to entertain an idea without adopting it. Aristotle. Great spirits have always encountered violent resistance from mediocre minds. Albert Einstein. When most people say they want $1 million, what they mean is that they want to spend $1 million. And that's the exact opposite of how you have $1 million. The psychology of money. This might be a little off. I'm reciting them from the top of my head, but you get the idea. Story 19. Nobody is going to look out for number one but you. So do not expect anybody else to care when you are getting taken advantage of. Just make sure it does not happen. My dad. Story 20. Life itself is meaningless. Life is an opportunity to create meaning. I read that in some comment on the internet and it really resonated with me. As an atheist, I ultimately have a nihilistic view of the world, but with a positive twist. I'm happy that it rains today, because if I wasn't happy, it would still rain. Story 21. My dad is from Trinidad. He moved to the States at age 17, did 1 year of high school, then joined the Marine Corps. For the 17 years that I lived in his household, he would tell me the following. Always expect to work twice as hard to earn half as much. Probably not his quote, but God was he right. I now say the same thing to my wife and 2 kids. Kind of like the family motto or creed. Story 22. Imagine you get $86,400 every day when you wake up. You can spend it however you like, but any you don't spend doesn't carry over to the next day. It just disappears, and you get another $86,400 tomorrow. Now swap the dollars for seconds in a day. How do you want to spend the time you have? Along with it is what it is. Story 23. Never look at a roadside accident. At best, you get to see a wrecked car, and at worst, you'll lose your lunch and a few nights' sleep. Is the risk really worth the reward? That was when I started realizing I did so many things as a reflex without even thinking about what I hoped to get out of it. These days, I take a second to pause before I do something and consider what could go wrong, what could go right, and whether it's worth the risk. The problem is I'm still a bad gambler, so sometimes I answer yes when I really shouldn't. So, I still make awful decisions, but at least now I think about them first. Story 24. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. Story 25. Know your enemy and know yourself, and you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Sun Tzu. Knowing what you're up against in life is important, but honestly, and I mean really honestly, evaluating yourself and what you're capable of, what your limitations and weaknesses may be, and using the difference between those two factors to inform your decisions will make all the difference in life. I read that a long time ago, and I guess I took it to heart because I do competitive research for a living these days. Story 26. One friend asked me about my then best friend who was abusive at times. What good is loyalty if this is what it gets you? That really hit. Story 27. Be the change you want to see in the world. Joseph Ronseth, often incorrectly attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. After atheism and existentialism, it helped lead me down a more spiritual path after a lot of meditation and praying. I'm still a piece of crap, though, just not as stinky as before. Story 28. You can't pour from an empty cup, something my therapist told me, and it frustrated the hell out of me in the beginning because I had put people before myself. But after working through sessions and months of it, I came to realize it's okay to put myself first. I do have times when I don't, but very minimal. Story 29. Forgiveness is the name of love practiced among people who love poorly. The hard truth is that all people love poorly. We need to forgive and be forgiven every day, every hour increasingly. That is the great work of love among the fellowship of the weak, that is the human family. Enrinuant. Story 30. Done is better than perfect. It was a very difficult thing to learn, but once you let go of obsessing over every little detail and just focus on getting things working to the minimum acceptable level and then improving gradually on them, it's liberating. Story 31. Live a good life. If there are gods and they are just, then they will not care how devout you have been, but will welcome you based on the virtues you have lived by. If there are gods but unjust, then you should not want to worship them. If there are no gods, then you will be gone, but will have lived a noble life that will live on in the memories of your loved ones. Marcus Aurelius. Story 32. Two stand out. Just because you are not sitting at my table anymore does not mean I want to see you starve. The second is a Bible verse. Here I am. Send me. Story 33. Do not put your fingers where you would not put your penis. The fact that I have broken 3 fingers and a thumb says one of two things. Either I am not that very bright, or I would put my penis in a lot of strange places. Story 34. My dad's quotes have always been my favorite. If they're talking about me, they couldn't have picked a better subject. And don't start something you're not going to finish. What's the point of wasting your time? Miss you, Papa. Story 35. The most terrifying force of death comes from the hands of men who wanted to be left alone. They try very hard to mind their own business and provide for themselves and those they love. They resist every impulse to fight back, knowing the forced and permanent change of life that will come from it. They know that the moment they fight back, their lives as they have lived them are over. The moment the men who wanted to be left alone are forced to fight back, it is a form of suicide. They are literally killing off who they used to be, which is why, when forced to take up violence, these men who wanted to be left alone fight with unholy vengeance against those who murdered their former lives. They fight with raw hate and a drive that cannot be fathomed by those who are merely play-acting at politics and terror. True terror will arrive at these people's door, and they will cry, scream, and beg for mercy, but it will fall upon the deaf ears of the men who just wanted to be left alone. Story 36. Go halfway, and one step more. Basically, once you've gone one step further than halfway, it's longer to go back than finish. Obviously, it doesn't apply to everything, but the mentality does. Commit, focus on the smaller components of a task, and don't give up before you've really tried. Story 37. If better is possible, then good is not good enough. My grandmother, She left behind a single yellow note card when she passed away with handwritten beliefs or truths she held. This is one I remember nearly every day, at least every week. Story 38. The future doesn't belong to the faint of heart. It belongs to the brave. Ronald Reagan. What if I told you 10 years from now your life would be exactly the same? I doubt you'd be happy with yourself, so why are you afraid of change? It helps me when I'm uncertain about taking a new job or trying something new to get me out of my comfort zone. Story 39. People aren't out to get you. They are out for themselves. Especially useful as I have a wonderful combination of mental health issues that make paranoia a very real problem. Story 40. Jack Johnson. Doc, you ought to be in bed. What the hell are you doing this for anyway? Doc, because Wyatt Earp is my friend. Jack Johnson. Hell, I've got lots of friends. Doc, I don't. Story 41. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Thomas Edison. That one has kept me going for over 20 years. Story 42. My 70-year-old granddad told me when I was about 10, always get it while you can, because you won't always be able to. I had no idea what he was talking about until I got older, but I still laugh when I think about it. Story 43. The moment we give up all hope and expectations for the future and abandon our faith in others is the moment we begin to live a life free from disappointment. Philosophical pessimism, also known as enlightened pessimism, is stoicism for experts.